so excited. I'm about to go live with Kaliswa Brewster, who is the narrator of my new book, The Pleasure Is All Yours. And we're going to talk not only about her experience doing voiceovers and being a narrator and being an actor, stage and film, but also really connect it to the theme of my book as far as our voice and expression as a big part of embodiment and connecting to our true self and having boundaries and creative expression. Well, I was excited to have a chance just to chat with you because I feel like, just out of my own selfish curiosity about what it would be like to read other people's books and just to connect with you. Yeah. And then I also was just tying it into a lot of what these lives are about, which is different things that have to do with embodiment and mind, body, spirit, and pleasure and relationships, all the stuff that you know, because from reading my book. But, yes. But also, you know, wanted to take time to hear from you first on how it was to read this, give the honest truth, and then to dive more into just the idea of being an actor and using your voice and the ways that that is like such a profound way to really connect to yourself and express yourself.
It was wonderful to read, and especially over, you know, the course of these wild couple years that we've had. Being at home is awesome, but I feel, and you can feel comfortable. I also feel like there's a lot of, I became disconnected from my bodies in ways that I wasn't aware, because I'm a very active person and I connect to my body through movement, and it was so much stillness. Recording books is amazing. Being a voiceover artist is amazing, but it requires being in small spaces and just not using my body the way that I'm accustomed to. And I think a lot of us can probably relate to, you know, people have spoken about weight changes, whether it be gaining or losing, just people feeling out of their element. And I certainly had that. So reading this book was great. The concept of bodyfulness in the way that you expressed it was new for me. But I definitely have found a lot of times when I think I'm really present on a Zoom, or I think I'm whatever, and then you just find that, nope, like your hands are being, or you're gripping your hands, or you're holding your breath, or you're not fully here. So reading the book was a treat. Yeah, total treat.
Yeah. Well, it's how long have you been doing? Like, what do you call it? Do you call it narrating or voiceovers?
Well, I mean, I do a lot of voiceovers and a lot of different types. So audiobooks are just one type. And probably for the past, this is relatively new for me. So relative to the past 3 years, I would say.
Okay. And do you ever have times where it's hard to feel connected to the work, or you feel like really absorbed in it? I mean, does that change how you
it definitely changes. So something is super academic or heady, you know, that can be difficult to connect with. And I felt like yours it was a lot of information, but it also was your voice, which I want to honor. I don't want to pretend I'm you. I want to give the feeling of it, but something about being your voice and an actual human is actually helpful to me, because again, I'm an actor. I like telling stories, you know, so. Yeah,
that I did. I mean, I definitely had some anecdotes, my personal anecdotes, client anecdotes, and there's some sections that were definitely nerding out on science a bit. But yeah, I could see where, I mean, it's just going to be different, like everything that you're reading, kind of how it relates to your own life, or how it appeals to you. But I was told by my editor that, I mean, basically that they had made a change about a year ago that in some cases authors certainly can still do it, but that for a lot of authors, they didn't want them to do it because it takes too much time, probably because we mess up. Right. And they have to start over again. And, oh, wait, can I do that? So I wasn't really even given a choice to read. I always thought I would read it.
I'm sorry. No, I didn't know that.
No. I mean, I'm not trying to rat out my editor,
of course.
But it was, so at first I thought, oh wait, I don't know how I feel about somebody else reading it. But then I was able to hear, I actually had heard your voice first because of Hala Curry's book.
Oh, right. Another wonderful one.
Yeah. Peace from Anxiety.
Yeah. And this has sort of been, I feel like these types of books have been a theme for me. And so I feel at home with the wellness, embodiment, like letting go of anxiety, meditation. That definitely, I honestly felt like the universe was trying to teach me something whenever these books would come in. Because I'd be like, I feel disconnected from my body. And then, you know, here's this book. The pleasure is all yours, you know?
Seriously, yeah. I mean, I guess that's one way to get in the information, and on, you know, the work time, you can get paid for, I guess, learning some information.
Completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess thinking of how I just know over with my journey with body connection, and thinking of how repressed Americans, you know, a lot of American culture can be, not all, but that is a lot of some of the roots is just that to not express, including audible expression. And I know that
Right.
when I do a lot of work, somatic work, and dealing with where we hold trauma in the body, there is so much that can be released when people even just sigh or
Completely.
let out guttural sounds. And I notice just how often people feel uncomfortable doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it makes them feel like they're weird or it's primal or something. But I guess just knowing that idea that it's not only is it a powerful release just to even make guttural sounds, but that in just channeling and using our voice, there is this sense of sort of self and being heard and
Completely.
expression that you have to do all the time for your work, right? To just be in your body, even if you're another character, you're in
Right.
your body as that character and using your voice. I mean, what was that journey like for you?
Well, I am classically trained. So I studied at American Conservatory Theater where I have my MFA. And part of that work is voice and speech work. And I was trained by a wonderful man named Jeffrey Crockett who studied the Middendorf technique. It's a Middendorf breath work. And I won't explain what that is, but one of the key elements is that sensation can unlock your emotion. So if you're missing one of two things, if you're missing emotion, you can tap into sensation, feeling. And if you're missing sensation, you can connect with your emotion to bring one or the other thing out. So if I'm feeling blocked, if I'm doing something that needs to be hyper emotional and I'm not there, rather than trying to psychologically trick myself into something, honestly, oftentimes I just have to connect to my body and my breath to get there. And I think that that's one of the benefits too of being a trained actor, is having different tools in your toolkit to be able to pull out to reach a task, you know?
Connecting to emotions, to each of your senses, to
Yeah,
your
exactly.
breath.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Well, and because emotions they emanate in the body. I think that's a lot of people use feelings and emotions interchangeably, and I mean emotions really are more on that visceral level, and then our mind, you know, turns them into feelings.
Right.
And so that is the truth. That to start there, in the senses and in the breath and what's happening viscerally, and then how can I connect that to also how I feel or want to feel.
Yeah, and you talk about trauma sometimes being trapped in the body, right? And I wonder if sometimes people's fear of guttural is if you let a little bit out, maybe they're afraid that the dam will break and they won't have control. There's no container to hold it. You know, just because we aren't a society that has really left room for emotion and, you know, riding the wave of it. You think that if you let a little bit go, the whole thing, like, so how do you create safety there?
Right. Yeah. If people haven't connected to releasing through sound, whether it be words or other guttural sounds, then I could see where that they might think, judge themselves, think it's weird, or like, where will I go with that? And so sometimes it does happen where people suddenly do have this outpouring of emotion in order to get more to that middle path, or being able to have it connect to it more day to day.
Right.
So I think that's a good point, that like, if I just connect to that a little bit, what will happen? Will I ever be able to reel it in?
And you're practicing in therapy, right? Or psychology, or?
Yeah.
So you help guide people through feeling safe with those things. That's amazing.
Yeah. Somatic psychology. So, and I'll do sometimes walking and talking. Sometimes there is yoga mixed in, or certainly I start with a meditation, just a centering meditation. We think of how, you know, racing to our therapy appointment.
Yeah.
Or I just had somebody else. So it's always a good reset to connect with the body too. But and then so also I noticed that you're a runner. Aren't you doing the marathon? Is it in a week?
I'm doing the marathon in about a week, just a little bit over a week in New York. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. So there's embodiment right there in mind body connection. Do you have you had training runs where it was like mind over matter, or
100%. 100%. And yes, part of doing the marathon was to reconnect to my body again after this crazy time and some health issues that I had over the past 2 years, and celebrating that I'm healthy now. But I don't think that running 26 miles is normal. So it's definitely a challenge. But one thing that I've learned is I've always run, but I always used to love to listen to music, which is great. And I definitely have my AirPods on me. But I've learned that on these longer 18, 20-mile runs, just breathing, it does become a sort of meditation, and I can stay more connected to myself. And if you told me this, like a year ago, I would think, no, absolutely no way. Like, I need music. It needs to be hardcore. It needs to like get me amped. But actually, the more quiet I am and the more connected I am, the further I can go, because I just feel like I'm with myself, if that makes sense.
Wow. Yeah. So you really sort of, you hone in, and then your breath can be its own, there's its own fluidity that maybe pairs with your body.
Completely. And you talk about being present, and it's another way for me to just be present. I feel like for me, sometimes music can be a distraction to get me away. Let's not think about the fact that we're running. It's going to be over. Let's make it fun. But just listening and being present, I can actually notice the trees in Central Park. I can be with how I'm actually, it's awesome. So I think that for the majority of the marathon, I'll be music free. And then times when I need amping, I'll put some music on.
Yeah. Well, and because I think of how, when I talk about bodyfulness and being in our bodies, there's obviously so many different ways to be in our body. I mean, somebody could be, say they're running on a treadmill, looking in the mirror and spending that whole jog just criticizing how they look, right? That isn't going to be doing the person any favors. They'll still be in their head, and they're kind of playing off of a storyline. So I think that your point is a good one, that, I mean, there's different ways to run 18 miles, very different ways to be in the experience. Just as there would be, somebody in a spin class or yoga class where they could spend the whole time criticizing or comparing, or, and that's not quite the kind of, I mean, there's benefits to still doing the movement, but that's still not going to be a real bodyful, peaceful experience
completely in
the body.
Right. Yoga's tricky for me, I think, because I have an idea that it should look a certain way or be a certain thing that I'm trying to like disconnect from, as it feels like yoga culture is becoming more expansive. But I know I definitely have an idea of what it's supposed to be that keeps me from being like present, and it's okay, this is what you can do today, and expansion is better than restriction, that type of thing.
I'm such a believer in just you do you on the mat. I mean, unless if I were to see somebody doing something that clearly looked like it was going to really mess them up or injure them, I would point it out. But otherwise, I feel like I always respect my yoga students when they are, stopping, pausing, faster, slower, whatever they need. Yeah, I'm a facilitator, but so I personally I'm not somebody who's giving like alignment directives.
Right.
For some, I know there's a lot of different styles and opinions around that. For me, I just want people to step on the mat and connect to self, connect to, breath and blood flow, and listen and discharge out stress. So I guess I want to give you permission to do that, depending on maybe your teacher might disagree, whatever class you go to.
No, it's all good. So how was it listening to the book with my voice? Was that strange?
Well, I think the very first listen, or just the first few minutes rather, not even the whole thing. But like I said, I was already somewhat familiar with your voice from Hala's book. And so I felt comfortable then once I heard that you were the person reading it. And I mean, I think I like my voice fine, but I'm certainly not in any way classically trained in reading things. And so who knows if I might have added stuff in based on my experience that could have been a distraction from the reader. Who knows how it can be maybe a detriment if the author's reading it. Maybe there's ways in which, they can attach to something too much, or I had really thought about that much until, this is my first book and this experience. But, and I think it is a little bit different. Just, some of those words I poured over so many times, starting like
it's really personal to your experience. So I want to honor that,
And words that just had been edited so many times, so that I had heard it in my head so many times. So in a way it was refreshing to hear it come together, and with, such a like beautiful and sort of poised voice. I mean, how does that work? I am just curious as far as, so if you notice that you stumble over a word, you just restart the sentence and they edit that in?
Yeah, I mean, either it's on, depending on the producer, it's on me. Like, either I will stop. I can always stop. If I'm like, okay, what did I just say? I can always stop. Or the producer will be like, okay, go back. We're going to do this over again. And also, with Sound Understanding, they are British. So they don't always know how we're supposed to say here and things in the United States. So there's a lot of back and forth conversation about pronunciations where I'm like, oh, no. Like, I'm pretty sure she's American. So this is how we say this word.
Yeah. I mean, this might be too much information for some, but given my platform and my brand, I can share the fact that I had an ex who grew up in Africa, but in a British sort of a style of English. And he said vaginal. And I said, I don't think that's how you say it. It's vaginal. And me and my friends were making fun of him. He was so mad. He's like, no, that is not true. It's not him. He like sent me a recording that was like in, British.
Yes.
English, that's how you say it. It's vaginal, not vaginal. So that's kind of a quite a graphic example. But we thought that was funny. Because we were both right. I guess, hey.
Yeah, you're right. You never know. There's no, especially with dialects, even in the United States, there's no right way. It's just there's regionalisms. You have to figure that out. And if there were personal names that came up, I can't recall any of them now. We had to be like, I don't know. Like how, it's someone in her, does it matter if I say her friend's name wrong? I don't know. What's our best guess at that? And then there's a lot of phases to it. We'll do what we can in the session, and then it goes off to proofing. And then they'll have a list of things, and we'll have to do another session to correct anything that we didn't catch or whatnot. So there's about 3 rounds of that usually.
Wow, you really must freak out if you get laryngitis or have a sore throat or something.
Yeah, it's like no getting sick, or just stay sick throughout the whole record, so you have a consistently husky voice.
Yeah, with that can be sexy too.
Yeah, exactly.
Husky sound to it.
Yeah.
Well, so what's the most recent thing that you have worked on since this? Always gotta hold it up.
What's the most recent thing that I have worked on since this? I've been doing looping, and I can't say what shows for, but some voice stuff. And the most recent film project is a project that I produced myself that is in post-production right now. Yeah.
Okay, so it's kind of a secret now, but if we follow your Instagram,
you'll see stuff about it. Yeah.
We'll know. Okay, yeah, that's. I think of how I had a brief foray. I think I mentioned when I wrote up the promo for this on my Instagram that I had a brief couple of years where I was trying to be a TV news reporter.
Yes.
And I just remember feeling like, also, 22, 23, I was so just not, talk about not being like in my own body or really knowing myself that well yet. And I remember just that job, I wasn't able to really enjoy it as much as I think I would now. If I went back and did that now, I think I would be much more in my body and true to myself as I spoke. Whereas then, I just had like, my hair was trying to be something.
I relate to that. I was a pageant girl growing up. So I like presentation, like I grew up like, this is how you dress, this is how you speak, and to a degree, it's great because it has given me a sense of poise that I think I naturally have. But I think that there was also so much focus on the exterior that it took me a long time to be like, well, what do I actually like? Who am I actually? That type of thing. Yeah. So I can relate.
So pageant stuff, yeah. And then, not only just face, hair, makeup, but then, weight and
body, all of it at a really young age, which I don't think is super healthy. It was the 90s, so I'm not blaming my parents or anything, but it definitely, that's not a recipe for embodiment, I wouldn't say.
Yeah. Same with, I got really into competitive, as a competitive athlete. And I feel like at what point is it really healthy until you get to the point of where you're using your body, you're abusing your body to be faster or win the race. And then it's sort of like, okay, what am I doing here? And then am I even loving the experience anymore, or just doing it, because my coach is yelling at me. But so I think for both of these, whether it be pageants or being an actor or being a competitive athlete, it's all, how do we make it our own? How do we maintain the joy of the craft or what brought us to it to begin with, but to maybe tune out the noise, that tells us how we should be and
what it should look like. Yeah. What do you say? You say like pleasure is your birthright. That's like one thing in the very beginning. I was like, that's it right there. The book is done. That's all we need. The end.
Absolutely. Yes. Especially for women, and people socialize as female, where it's like there's the guilt, or just how we're encouraged to be such caregivers for others, which is a wonderful thing to be a caregiver, but not at the expense of letting ourselves receive, and to do so unapologetically.
Yeah, and it's awesome to care about the exterior, I think, if it makes you happy, you know, not as performance necessarily.
Yeah, and just kind of to pick and choose. I mean, for me, I feel like I'm aware of all the stuff maybe that media and the patriarchy is telling me I should do as far as my outer form. And I pick and choose. I'm like, okay, I'll get a pedicure because that's going to feel good to me, or I'm, going to do something to my hair. But then it's like, when is it getting overboard? And then that's, I don't want to spend the time and energy and the money. And so I just try to be intentional about it. And then I sometimes have my moments where I get hooked in a little more than I'd like to admit.
Yeah. Do you feel like, I mean, with all of the research and all of your work, it's always interesting, you know, therapists need therapists, like actors need acting coaches. Do you feel like you are still in process, or?
Always. Yes, absolutely. What I loved in my graduate program, one of the requirements, it was basically almost like a class, you could even get financial aid for it, was that you had to have at least 1 year it was a 5-year program, 1 year in the doctoral program in which you went to a therapist, also a doctoral level therapist, almost every week. Like you could take the holiday weeks off, but they wanted you to have that year where you really dove in, not only to model from somebody who knew what they were doing, but to work through a lot of your shit.
Yeah.
And then it's not like, oh, I got it figured out. Now I'm, I got life.
All done.
Get me. So I definitely always, I mean, I'll have some phases where I maybe slack a little bit, or I focus a little bit more on like massage or some other physical healing arts. But yeah, I'm working with like a somatic therapist right now, I think like every 3 weeks. Also just because there's so much I absorb energetically in working, I'm sure, with people. Yeah. And are your days like what portion? Now, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to turn this on you, but I'm curious if I'm allowed to ask questions. Oh, I'm an open book. You're doing so many different, like you're writing, you're yoga teaching, you're doing therapy. Like, so what is your day like? A lot of different elements, pockets? Yeah, I definitely wear a lot of hats. I even take insurance still. I'm kind of stopping doing that, but then there's sort of half a day where I'm just dealing with insurance billing, and I'm just like, what am I doing here? But yeah, mainly a lot of it is with clients. And in the session, sometimes more talking, sometimes a mix of talking and embodiment and yoga and that kind of thing. And then I haven't really been doing any writing lately, but just a lot of the book tour and the marketing and kind of pushing that. But it's definitely different headspaces. I mean, writing is, well, they're both creative. I mean, there's problem solving and creativity and intuition involved in being with a client. But it's a different sort of tuning in and creativity than writing. I mean, most people would consider, I guess, writing, even if it's nonfiction, to some extent creative, I suppose. It's totally creative. I think it's 100% creative. Yeah. So you have to form the language to tell the story that you want, that in a way that sounds authentically you, but also that your audience is going to receive. I think that is 100% creative. Yeah. And when you think of the fact that whether it be a TV show that you're in or a book I write, I mean, people ultimately want to be entertained. Yeah. Education, yes, sometimes, information, but also I think we all want to be entertained in different ways. And so that needs to come from. Yeah, your book is spicy sometimes. It's definitely entertaining. I don't remember. I wonder at one point I was like, ooh, I'm going to say this. Yeah, not to keep bringing in my editor, but I remember she was like, do you really need to, like, what is that nipple story in service to? And like, I tried on the sample and walked out. And also I was way over words. I had to cut out like thousands and thousands of words, and it's already. Oh, wow. But I remember very specifically thinking I am keeping that in because I want to keep it light. Yeah. There's heavy shit in the book, but I want to, some of these stories, and especially when you get to the last section where it's talking about, you had to read out loud, about different types of like orgasms or sexual orientation or practices that couples could do, sensual practices couples could do. And I'm comfortable saying those words because I sort of have to be, and it's part of what I do as a relationship and sex therapist. But yeah, maybe for you reading over, it's like, oh,
I think only because I think it was more that I was like reading it with another person I didn't know very well, that sometimes I was like, I'm embarrassed, but I shouldn't be. That's the whole point of this.
I'm sorry.
The whole point of this is that this is great.
Totally. But yeah, that's so true. When you're with somebody else, like, you know, some like random dude you don't know is like, oh, she's talking about female orgasms or something.
And I had to come out with it as comfortably as you would. So, like, it's totally cool. I'm totally comfortable.
But if I had been sitting there like doing the audio reading it myself and my dad was sitting next to me, I would have been the same way.
Yeah.
Depending.
Yeah, totally. That's me if my family watches me do anything like remotely sexual on screen. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. Well, and you have like crew around, I guess, also. Like camera crew.
Yeah. It's not really sexy when you do anything sexy. There's no sexiness involved at all.
Yeah. But that's true. The different layers of like having the witness versus just like reading it in our own. And part of why I also wanted to write a book is that, I mean, a lot of people are never going to go to a therapist to talk about their sexual issues or sexual health or body issues. And so then this is at least a way to have it be private, right? You can read it in your own time, on your own terms, alone, or listen to it on, you know, when you need, because that's just going to be more accessible also for.
Completely. I hope more people are more open. I feel like in general therapies, people are more open to that than they used to be. And I just hope that there's more openness to connecting to our bodies too.
Absolutely.
Obviously you're contributing to that. So thank you.
Thank you. I mean, gosh, so for people to catch your upcoming projects that are secret, I guess they can
follow me on Instagram and there will be updates.
And we'll get to see you amazingly finish a marathon in less than a week.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully good weather.
Yes, hopefully, yeah.
My marathon days are over. I think.
You've done though, yeah. So yay.
Back in the day, now my knees are too cranky, but yeah, I'll be sending you all my best energy.
I will take it gladly. I will feel it and I will take it. Thank you.
Well, wow, what a pleasure to get to chat with you and just hear your perspective. And next time I'm in New York City, I may have to track you down.
Look me up.
All right. Thanks, Kaliswa. So nice.